Okay, Michelle, we are recording this on Memorial Day weekend. Zero connection to the film that we're about to talk about, but just need to call that out there. I am recording this from California, so
That's true.
needed to find
There's
some
a
in.
tie-in.
You know, before we dive in, like as one of the opening images of ET where they show like the city, and it must have just been because I hadn't watched it in a while, but I was like, is this California? Like, I didn't even I thought it could have been like any city. I
I don't
was
think
con
they ever really say exactly where they are, but it
They do.
seems, do they?
They do. They have the map with the globe.
Oh, that's right. Okay.
The map and the globe, and they're like, we are here.
Okay.
Here.
So you're on
Well,
location.
I'm on location. Very excited. I'm not directly under a mountain, but I don't have a shed in my backyard. I don't have a backyard, but I'm trying hard here to have some sort of deep connection. What are your first memories of watching this movie? We've never talked about ETA, I don't think, in any passing conversation between the two of us. So
No.
I'm
Okay.
very excited.
I've got a grab bag of thoughts and memories. This movie came out in 1982. I was born in 1983 into a family on our mom's side of the family where there were already four cousins. So I was the fifth, which turned into a family of 14 cousins. Laura is the 14th. I'm going to say it was because of the timing of my birth and this movie, and not because of the actual physical similarities. But my older cousins, when I was born, said that I looked like E.T. and called me E.T. when I was a baby.
I mean, I think it's a compliment because he's adorable. So I would just go for
I
it.
have some thoughts on it, on his appearance that I'll bring up later. But if you're watching this on YouTube, I'll post one of my baby photos next to ET's photo, and you can let us know if you agree
Are
with
we
our
talking
big cousins.
are we talking newborn Michelle or 1 month old Michelle or any
I
baby
don't
Michelle?
know. All I know is like mom would tell me this all the time. Your cousins called you ET when you were a baby.
I think it was a cultural phenomenon. I mean, when that came out, they were probably hyped about the movie. They're not around babies a lot, and they were like, this is a bald little baby, so it's ET. And I'm sure you were playing, sticking your fingers up and stuff. So
Probably. Okay. All
and you
right.
probably had a
Well,
blanket around your head, so it makes sense.
it does make sense, I suppose. Still a little insulted by it, but that's okay.
It's time to move on. It's been 40 years, so
My second memory will need mom and dad to fact check this. But I have a memory of this VHS being in our house. They owned it. They owned a copy of this movie. I don't remember ever watching it. I don't remember them ever watching it, but I'm pretty positive that a 1980s old fashioned VHS of ET existed in our household. And maybe the next time our mom, preservationist that she is, has held on to a lot of tapes and DVDs, CDs, books, etc. that we've had throughout our childhood, and they're mostly stored in Cape Cod in the basement. So next time one of us are there, maybe we could see if we're able to locate this alleged
I think
ET.
I think I'm going to shut down the allegedness because
You
I
have
have
no memory?
never seen this VHS. My first thought was that it might have perished in a flood. We
Oh,
had like
the Great
two,
Basement
two to, I
Flood.
feel like we had 2 to 3 basement floods, or
We
maybe it
had
was just one.
several.
I know we had one specific one
Okay.
that was like a bad one where we
Hmm.
lost a lot, but I have a feeling it was among the perished goods from the flood of, I want to say it was like 2003, but I'm
Okay.
not sure.
Okay. All right. Well, we'll fact check and get back to you on that, on the validity of this memory. And other than that, ridden the ET ride at Universal Studios, which I have to say, after rewatching this movie, fantastic ride. And like
Fantastic.
really underrated. Like it's a really good. The queue is good. You're standing next to these giant redwood trees. You're feeling the chilly air. The music is playing. I'm so impressed with the experience that they created. It's a really immersive, fun, exciting adventure. And I'm fairly sure it still exists at Universal in Florida. I have season passes, although I've not yet been this year. I am going to prioritize going to re-ride this ride.
It's euphoric.
It is.
And it's dark. It's a little spooky. You hear some crickets chirping. They really bring you into this experience. I feel like we'll probably talk about this, but I'm actually confused about the woods because it looks like a very like desert like location in
where the
California.
house is.
Where are these redwood trees coming in?
I feel like
it doesn't.
They tried to kind of combine Northern California and Southern California.
Yeah.
They borrowed from a little of.
They wanted E.T. to have the full California experience.
Yes.
So
yes.
All they're missing is the beach, and we would have covered it all.
And I will end with the one and only time I have seen this movie before this rewatch was in 8th grade in my English class. My English teacher was out on maternity leave, and our substitute teacher, now that I'm like thinking about it, was probably like, you know, a child. It was definitely like a really, really young teacher. Shout out Mr. Matulak. And we watched this and wrote an essay about it.
Wow.
And
Did you enjoy it?
I think I was neutral on it. I think, you know, I was excited that we got to watch a movie in class, but other than being called E.T. as a child, did not have any particular attachment to this movie or to Spielberg at that point at age 12, 13.
Wow. You have just a lot of feelings about being called E.T. that you really, you probably, your essay was probably like, I refuse to write this because I have some deep trauma from being called this alien as a child. A+. I wish you had that essay.
I wish I did too. Maybe, I'll look through my things.
Mom probably has it.
Mom has everything.
We'll find it. It's probably tucked in the VCR case.
Oh.
Consolidation. Very organized household.
What about you? I'm laughing because you're spot on. We have never once discussed this movie before, ever.
This season is awful with my muscle memory because when I was watching this last night, I was like, have I seen this whole movie from start to end? Because I don't think that I have. So I feel like last night was my true sit down watch from beginning to end. Have definitely seen it before, but no immediate memory. I think of most of my associations are with the ride and just having a grand old time flying on a bike. I mean, who wouldn't? But yeah, I don't really have any like deeper fun story. I mean, maybe it's good because I guess people didn't think that I looked like E.T. I was more of like
that was a positive, yeah.
A loaf of bread or something. I don't know.
Well, I'm thinking about like around the time when you were born. It would have been the equivalent of like someone saying that you looked like Barney the dinosaur.
Yeah, I did love Barney.
So you would have taken that as a compliment.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's a friendly dinosaur.
It's very purpley.
Very purpley. If this was the Jurassic Park episode, we can concur. Parents love dinosaurs.
That's true. Great point.
Giants. And apparently they were purple. I don't know what's going on. Very unrelated, but like, did you see they like rebranded Barney? Like he looks different. He's like a different character.
He has a new look. Was it a
like new and improved? He looks less like old, I guess. They made him look kind of like a young Barney.
What do you think the reasoning was? Do you think it was like just to like, make it like new and fresh, or was there some kind of like Barney controversy that they were trying to like remedy?
No, I don't think that I didn't really look into it. I just remember seeing an image one day and being like,
I need to look this Barney. Up. And we're down this road. I'm going to be wondering about it the whole episode. And this is a good opportunity to bring up, if you've not yet listened to our Barney. Jurassic Park episode, go back and listen. Yeah, episode 1.
He kind of looks like a young, like a baby Barney. That's
His
what he looked like to
smile
me.
has gotten a lot wider. It looked like he had some dental work done.
The older Barney looked he looked bigger, and this Barney looks like
He's cuter.
his younger
He
cousin.
looks like this looks like Barney and Yoshi had a baby.
Yes. It's like very much giving Mario Kart vibes.
Yeah. I don't see why this was necessary, but
I think it would have been more interesting if they made him it was like his child or a cousin or
yeah,
something.
yeah.
Kind of like when they got rid of Steve and brought in Joe.
Yes.
Blue's
Yes,
Clues. Okay.
exactly.
Yeah. See, but I'm still not over the dinosaur concept with parents thinking that they're gentle creatures. Like it makes sense with dogs and other type of animals, but I mean, we're really just going to create a purple dinosaur and say that it's friendly. I guess it's harmless.
Until the dinosaurs come back, and then we're going to be
And
blaming
then we're
all the parents.
yeah, kids are going to be like, that's my friend. He's on my pajamas. We want more thoughts on the dinosaur theory about it's not really a theory, but just if you're a parent, are you really pushing dinosaurs on your kids? I need to know.
While we're on this topic of the Barney rebrand, I touched on this briefly, but I feel like this is the spot to talk about it because it's not really like what did I love or what did I hate, but I'm curious to hear your thoughts on the aesthetics of E.T. And I'm not just harping on this because of the comparison of baby me to E.T., but
I think you are.
They were I have to think that whoever like designed the look of E.T. was really put in a tricky position because they had to make something that would be scary enough that a kid would be alarmed if they saw it like walking around their backyard or in their closet. But it needed to have attributes that were, you know, appealing enough and like pull on our heartstrings enough that you're going to be rooting for him and wanting to be friends with him too. Do you feel like they pulled it off?
I think they did, and I also think I'm definitely don't consider myself a sci-fi expert, but there are so many books and shows and things about aliens that a lot of people have certain perceptions of what they would look like. I'm sure Steven Spielberg did some research or things that he gravitated towards of what he thought this creature would look like. So I don't know if they played off that. I'm curious if when he was writing this, he had this like image in his head. For the time, it was like amazing that he was able to create something like this. I mean, a lot of work went into it. I was reading yesterday, they just have a lot more better technology today that they could like create him in like a lot in a quicker time and just more efficiently. But I don't know. I think they pulled it off. I don't know. I almost wanted him to be like even cuter.
I was
Just
going
a
to say
little
the
bit
same
cuter.
thing. A little too creepy, especially you sent me the gif before of his fingers. Like it does very
Well,
look like horror movie-esque at times.
oh, I would watch it a lot, but the movie Signs has a lot of similarities with the
Oh,
hand
we should do signs. We've
clasping.
seen
We
that a
should
lot.
definitely do
Yeah.
Signs. We should have done a collab with Signs and ET. That would have been a good one. Alien Invasions. Maybe we'll have to do a Signs and War of the Worlds, which is
Oh,
great
I've
film.
never seen that.
It's spooky. It's a good one. But the hand clasped around doorways, the swing that's going back and forth, I'm sure that was purposeful with Signs that they're trying to give a little nod to ET. But I think that they made it creepy enough. I imagine watching this as a kid. If I was in elementary school, I would be scared in the beginning before
Oh,
knowing that he's going to be a gentle giant.
absolutely.
Gentle, not giant, but
Gentle, small alien.
so cute.
I want him to be just
A
I
little
feel like
cuter.
he err on the side of just being a little cuter. He could use the treatment that Barney got that he did not need. E.T. should receive.
Okay, that's fair.
To make him like
Um,
a little softer, a little less wrinkly and spindly.
but I like how wrinkly he is because he kind of reminds me of like a Yoda, like an old little
Yeah,
man.
yeah.
I'd rather him look as an elder
Okay,
versus a young chicken.
okay,
You know what I mean? He definitely reminds me of Yoda, and I think that's why I love him so much, but
okay,
just with much bigger eyes.
okay. All right, should we get into things we
Yeah.
loved?
I want to hear from you first.
The number one thing I loved about this movie was the cinematography. I wasn't expecting much from this rewatch. I wasn't expecting to really like it. I was on our list, I was dreading it a little bit, if I'm being honest. And I was kind of delighted from a artistic perspective at a lot of the ways that this movie was shot, a lot of the scenes. I felt like there were so many frames where I wanted to, like hold my hands up and just take a snapshot because they were so the composition was so beautiful. Obviously the landscape, we talked about the redwoods, the trees being up in the mountains, but then also like overlooking the hills and seeing all of the city lights. It was just, similar to last week talking about Goonies. Like I wanted to go and spend time there. And even though, a lot of moments in this movie are a little spooky and scary, like it felt very peaceful in a way.
Kind of like an eerie peacefulness.
Yeah. I also really liked the way that they kind of like introduced the concept of like, the bad guys. It was like a lot of silhouettes, them kind of like, standing up on the hill, not really seeing faces. I liked the choice to with the, essentially like the main bad guy, the keys guy, not really seeing him or hearing him until, almost the end of the movie. All really great choices, and I was delighted to experience them.
I was equally as delighted. I never use that word delighted, but I'm going to say it on this podcast. So much experimental, like, shots in this movie, and this came out after Jaws and Raiders of the Lost Ark. So I think it was really cool to the fact that we just watched those and kind of compare the two. They're very different. Also, Goonies is it's definitely like having kids at the centerpiece of the movie, but very, very different movies, almost polar opposites. But I found myself in multiple points throughout being like, wow, that was such an experimental shot. It almost came off like it was one of his first movies
Yes, I
he
agree.
came out with, and being very impressed and maybe not fully getting it, but appreciating him as an artist, that he just thought that looked cool. And I don't know, I wonder if it maybe had something to do with budget, that he was able to do it a little bit more because he had already been successful with a lot of his earlier movies, that he could mess around, quote unquote, mess around or try new things. But, I think we'll definitely get into this, but like the frog scene is so weird when they're all like throwing them out the window. I don't think I was expecting it. I think this movie is a slow burn is the wrong word, because there's not like a huge build up to something. I think it's just a slower movie. And not in a bad way. It's a lot more peaceful and level-headed with kind of excitement sprinkled in, but it almost kind of feels like we're just watching their life. There's not as much of like a very structured plot, like this happened and then this happened and this happened. It's kind of just them developing this relationship with someone foreign. I couldn't agree more. I thought experimental is the first word that comes to mind.
You bring up a great point in that somehow for this conceptually, when you're describing what this movie is, like, an alien kind of gets left on Earth and connects with a little boy. It sounds so, spectacular and interesting and, not something that's going to happen in your everyday life. But the tone of this movie, of not the whole movie, but like a lot of this movie is just feels so like simple and domestic in a way. Like, you know, all the scenes that take place in the house with just, you know, this single mom doing her best, the kids doing their best, and just being. And I love that he didn't try to like add anything more to that. He didn't try to make it super fancy. And even the fact that they bring up the absence of the dad a few times, but it's not like a huge plot point in the movie. It's more of like an explanation as to where he is rather than like making the movie more than just this simple story of a little boy and a little alien meeting and understanding one another.
I was thinking that was a really dark plot point, but so human in a way. Like, and they did a good job of making it comedic with the girl just being like, my dad's in Mexico. The girl, sorry, Gertie. It was very like adult in a way, even though it's appealing to kids and adventure and just the silliness of like trying to hide something that's so insane from your parents, you know, like obviously she's going to be a little bit distracted and not know what's going on, but I always love that sort of tone of having like the most insane circumstances going on right under a parent's nose and them being so oblivious to it. I think that's what made it so much more fun. And I think that this movie just has its own flair, right? Like we see so many movies where it's kind of like the butthead, like mean older brother. And I love that the three of them actually have they have typical sibling tiffs, but they're kind of all in it together and they don't really draw those lines very strongly. It's kind of just like they all hang out together, they all live in the same house, and they're all together with ET. And it wasn't like the bully older brother, kind of what we just, you know, actually kind of similar tones, I would say, to the Goonies, which we just reviewed. But even that had a little bit more of
the tension.
I felt like between Mike and Elliot, there wasn't really much like fighting going on. It was kind of them poking fun at each other for thinking of, you know, the fact that he saw an alien. Having Gertie included in all of this, I think it would be a completely different movie without her. She just brings so much like light and innocence and adorableness to this movie. So I think beyond the cinematography and the experimental shots, I feel like the characters and the family was very original. Like it had its own tone and relationships. Like it's very strange to say I've seen this story told so many times, but never in this way.
I have to think that a lot of stories borrow, either consciously or subconsciously, borrow elements from this movie because it was so groundbreaking. But I hadn't thought of that about the siblings. And I wonder how much thought went into having three kids and having them be those ages. I mean, Elliot is definitely like the through point and the initial connection to ET, but I think it's really kind of like necessary for the recipe to have someone like a really, young, innocent perspective from Gertie, almost being able to connect with ET in a way that Elliot can't because he's like, too old, but then also having Michael's role, like not quite being an adult yet, being someone who can like help out in a capacity more than like someone Elliot's age can, but still having the innocence of like, wanting to protect this creature. And his immediate move isn't like, we need to call the police, which would have been my move if I had been the oldest sibling in this situation. I would have been a lot more like the mom, like let's get everyone out of here. Let's call the authorities. We need to fix this.
Yeah, definitely watching this back, I had more of a memory of the mom being more in on it, but she's so disconnected. Like there's really never a moment where she gets to develop a relationship with ET,
Mm-hmm.
which it was weird. Like I liked it. I liked that it was just the kids' kind of secret and their experience because it's very comedic to me thinking about someone Elliot's age hiding this person, this thing in their house and trying to figure it out on his own and having no help.
It
Like
is really funny. It's a
there's
great premise.
and I think it's such a well written script that it's very subtle. It's not these like obvious things that you saying. There's a lot of acting that
Mm-hmm.
comes into this movie. It's a lot of things that are unsaid, but they're able to sprinkle in still comedic aspects of it that are very like kind of just a pinprick. There's a part where Elliot's like, and I think this plays into like his innocence and it makes you take a step back and realize that he's really just a kid in this insane circumstance where he says like he's saying like I don't know where what direction to go, like mom always drives, like he said I don't know streets. And I just love that concept. And again, like playing into the innocence of Mike not having his license yet, he's like I've never driven forward before. So I think it's like it makes it so much more special that it really was the entire movie is just the three of them hanging out with him.
Something that makes this movie interesting is that, at some parts it feels like the Goonies. It feels like just like, an adventure story with kids. At some parts it feels like a horror movie, especially in the beginning. Like it's, before we really see E.T., like going into this, like we already know who E.T. is. E.T. is a brand. It's not like, a creature. But imagine seeing this for the first time and you having no idea what this thing is that's like lurking in the shed and around the yard. I mean, I felt like that those scenes in the beginning were really, suspenseful in a good way. But I think what they did at the end, the whole, I would say like the third act with, E.T. perishing, if you will, and having all the FBI there. Even though I've only seen this movie once, I did remember that happens. And because I'm such like a baby about like, animal type things, not that he's an animal, but like animal adjacent. And, I was like, I don't want to watch that part. So I did watch it, but I was like washing dishes, like at the same time. Like I got up off the couch and I was like, I'm going to like half watch this because I can't get too invested in this or I'm going to get really upset. So, but like now in hindsight, now that I've, rewatched it almost feels like those scenes were handled in a way of like, they could have gone darker and I'm glad that they didn't. Because this is supposed to be like a family movie, but even though parts I feel like are really not at all, but I felt like that choice to keep it kind of from like a kid's perspective, having all these like, big adults in their spacesuits essentially, and not really even like seeing the bad guy's face until, close to the end of the movie. Yeah, I don't know. What do you think about all of that?
Yeah, so oh my gosh, a lot to unpack. So I think I had read this a while ago, but as I was refreshing my memory on certain facts about the movie last night, Drew Barrymore also tried out for the role of the main character in Poltergeist. And Steven Spielberg didn't feel like she was a good fit because I think she felt too innocent to him and just had a little bit more playfulness instead of a serious tone. So he said like, I have another role recommendation for you. These movies came out the same week. And I don't think I've ever seen Poltergeist, but I know the general tone and just from very spooky previews that I've seen that they feel similar in the fact of like being in a very dark, ominous house. There's almost no light in the house because they have to keep it dark for him. But I think even before ET came into the picture, it just felt very like this dark place. And that's, I've never seen Poltergeist, but that's kind of what I think of when I think that movie, just a dark room and a girl against a TV. And it's interesting that they came out the same week, because I feel like there's definitely similarities in maybe how Steven Spielberg was filming movies during this season of his life. One is a very scary and not child movie, and this kind of, maybe it was like the family version of Poltergeist for this time period, and he wanted to appeal to different audiences. I have no data to back that up, and also do not take my opinion to heart, because I need to see Poltergeist to actually make that judgment. But from what I know about it, the tones are giving me very similar settings. The scene where E.T. is dying, as a kid, if you're watching that, you're not like, oh my God, this is so upsetting. And you're kind of just, like you said, you're watching it in the lens of something you would be watching on TV, because it's not like it's bloody and there's all these things going on, but it's emotionally upsetting. I cried during that scene last night. I think especially just when he actually thinks that he's gone and he lost him, because I just love their friendship in this movie, and I think it's so beautiful. But you're right. I think that they strike a very balanced approach of making it pull at your heartstrings and be sad and be a little bit scary and be a little bit disturbing, but they don't go over the line that it's like, you can't be watching this with your children. I think especially for coming out in 1982, felt pretty ahead of its time, that entire scene and sequence, and like them being next to each other, I think was so crazy. Like that, literally they're setting up shop in the middle of his house and he's watching his new friend die next to him, but also he's feeling the physical feelings that he's feeling. So I felt like that was very adult in a way, if you were thinking about, on a human level. I do somewhat believe in like telepathy and having some type of like emotional connection on a deeper level, but on this earth, that's not something that people technically experience. But I felt like it was very human, in the sense that we do feel so much emotional pain when we lose people in our lives that are close to us, that it felt very like recognizable. And then like from the visual and graphics, like actually turning him white is like very disturbing, but it's weird because it's a creature. Again, the word that comes up is experimental and interesting and original. There's not a movie that I have seen that I would compare that intense scene to. And I think that they nail it. I think they do a really good job. Balance keeps coming up for me in this movie. And I think, again, like having the slower tones, which is very different from Goonies, where everything's very fast. There's a lot of like adventure, and like every single scene there's like a new trap or something going on, or something, lots of yelling and music. And I just felt like it was a lot like slower of a tone. But the scenes that are exciting and there's a lot more like adventure involved, I think they do a really good job. Like one thing that I was thinking of, there is nothing more powerful, or like the image of a group of teen boys on bikes together. And that entire scene where they band together to get him home is such a strong lead up to the end of the movie. And it just gives me so much like excitement. I'm like rooting for them the whole time. And I think that's why it ended up being such a successful ride because it's very exciting.
Like we take it for granted now, because this has like been part of our culture now for, over 40 years. But the concept, I mean, we've already talked about, definitely in the Goonies episode, we'll probably talk about it again in a future episode, but like the 80s and kids on bikes, I mean, it really like it ended in the 90s, but I feel like the 80s were like the pinnacle of maybe 70s, but seeing kids on bikes so much happens so much in 80s movies, and to use that bike as as a device in this other way where they're flying and they're using the basket. And then it became like literally an icon as part of the Amblin Entertainment logo. I don't think that we celebrate like how significant the creation of that idea was.
Yes. I have hope for bikes. I think that if I have kids, I'm going to be like, listen, you can go out and ride your bike around town and get your friends, band together, have a group of you,
don't
throw
wear
it
helmets,
down and go get a soda, drink a Coca-Cola. You don't have to drink kombucha. Like, I'm just going to throw them out into the wild. They will be very sore thumbs in Los Angeles, but I have hope for them. We're going to get rid of all the highways and we're only going to make cul-de-sacs and bike lanes for our future kids. If anyone has listened to the Goonies episode that we just released, we talk about having tender moments. They're all different ages and there's a lot of innocence in there, but I think that they do a really strong job of having these very tender moments throughout the movie where you're just like, your heart is singing and you feel all warm and fuzzy inside, but also you have this like sense of fear of what's going to happen next. A lot of unknown things feel like they're on the horizon in most of these scenes.
Yeah, I mean, I think it says a lot for us as, millennial girls, especially you. I mean, you really are, you were not, I mean, I was not really part of this culture. I mean, I remember it, but I was so young and by the time you were born, it was kind of like, it was so ingrained in the culture that it really wasn't like a memory, if you will. And it was funny that when I was watching it, just Jimmy walked in like the first scene, or maybe it wasn't the first scene where they're in the house, where the kids are sitting around the table and they're ordering the pizza. And Jimmy said, "Oh, are you watching Stranger Things?" And I was like, "No, but like, obviously, they've gotten so much inspo from this movie." All of this to say, what I was starting with was saying that it's amazing how, even though me and you as kids, like this was not our reality as children. We did not grow up, as boys or, playing these games or riding bikes in the way that they did. But yet, it's such a universal thing for people to associate with childhood, even though it wasn't the exact same activities.
And I think that's why Steven Spielberg is so successful, because as humans, we crave adventure, whether or not you consider yourself adventurous enough as an adult. As kids, you really just play and want to explore and have new experiences. And I think that's the heart of this movie, of kids who feel a little bit lost maybe with adults' things that they are faced with. So, we do bring up the dad being a subtle comment, but to experience that at Elliot's or Mike's or Gertie's age is really a difficult thing. And I think having some type of more emotional connection with something that's not from there, I think plays really nicely into giving us that little sprinkle of backstory and them just having a full-blown adventure. And it all making sense of why they're so tied to him, because they're grasping on to their youth and having something that's very innocent to them.
And fantastical. Something that they know that adults either won't believe in it or will say it's a bad thing.
Yeah, and I think it just plays off child innocence of they're able to seek out the good and use their instinct. They know that E.T. is a magnificent and gentle creature, that he's not going to hurt them. But I love that they say that line, that I think they say it to Gertie, that this is only something that kids can see.
Mm-hmm.
I don't have a lot of grievances for this movie. This was like a 180 from just coming off of The Goonies. Because in your mind, you're thinking, okay, this is a family movie. It's about kids going on adventures and having these experiences and like laughing and also a little bit of scariness. Because I haven't seen it that much, as I was rewatching it, I was thinking, do I want it to be more like the Goonies? Do I want more adventure? Do I want more excitement? Do I want more laughs and jokes instead of this like serious tone? But the answer is no. I think I was expecting it, but I was like, at the whole time I'm thinking, this is such a unique and beautiful movie, and it makes sense of why this is so ingrained in our cultural experiences as an original movie. And I'm so happy that it was made. It's not an issue, but it was more so wanting a couple more jokes. I'm always very tied to comedy. And on the flip side, I love sadness. And I think that this movie is its own formula of giving me both, but in its own unique way. So I think that the lesson is not every a movie that stars a kid as the main character needs to be the same tone, especially when it comes to Spielberg. Like, he blew me out of the water with this one of giving me something that I wasn't expecting.
I think it was that we had just watched The Goonies and I was feeling like I want to watch it again. Like, that was so fun. And I was putting that on ET to be that when it's a different thing. So I totally get that feeling.
It's less dialogue heavy, and I think more about the cinematography and experimenting and not trying to just appeal to us. Definitely not cheap laughs from Goonies, because I actually think it's very funny, but I kept thinking like, oh, I'm gonna laugh a lot in ET, but there's not really funny parts. It's a pretty heavy movie.
It is.
I think that I am finally on the same page as you. I mean, not that I ever am okay with animal cruelty or anything like that, but I felt sensitive about the frog scene for a couple of reasons. So let's break it down.
Okay.
And talking about childhood experiences, trauma, all these things. I was fine with the frogs until he brought up the fact that he was going to give them a chemical cotton ball to kill them. Why are they making these kids kill the frogs? If they're going to make them dissect it, which is one thing, can't they just bring in dead frogs that are from a lab instead of making them watch them die with a chemical?
Traumatic. It's just so. Was this like a thing that happens?
I do think everything is purposeful, and I think that in a way they are almost comparing these frogs to ET as like this creature that we can just kill in this glass environment and
it's fine
and do experiments on. So I think that they were trying to bring a little bit more dramatization. Reason I have with my own experiences, I'm sure everyone listening to this podcast, and I want to know what animal or figure you needed to dissect in some type of middle school science class. But when I was in 5th grade, we had to dissect lamb hearts.
What?
And yes, lamb hearts. And the reason I hate it so much is because I remember the smell of the chemicals that they use. Like, I'm picturing it in my brain right now of remembering the smell that they use to like preserve or whatever we needed to dissect it. And it was not great. And I didn't like it. And I don't know, maybe I wasn't thinking about it at the time, but at least they didn't make us physically kill this animal. But I'm thinking of like the smell, and it was so gross.
I think I know that exact smell because I want to say it was in 6th grade. We had to dissect a cow eyeball. And I remember using like a razor blade, which was awful. But I have a frog experience. In 7th grade, our science class dissected frogs. And there must have been some kind of like opt out because I didn't do it. I remember I had to give a presentation about frogs instead, but I remember there kind of being like a form, like if your child doesn't feel comfortable doing this, sign this, send it back, and they'll do like an all kind of like an alternative assignment. And I'm so glad that they did that because I think it like I was one of like, you know, maybe two or three people who were like, no, I really don't want to like slice up an animal. I get it, you know, I guess if you have an interest in science and if these animals are already dead, but like I don't know if that was the case. I don't know if these animals were killed to so that seventh graders could slice them open. And if that's the case,
they were.
That's I don't think that that's right.
Yeah, not for me. I don't know. I haven't really thought about it. I just remember not liking the smell. It's very funny how we're oldest and youngest because I'm like, I'll slice it open. It's fine. But the idea of it like being for the fact that for us to learn, like I would hope that they died by natural causes and then it was donated. There has to be some sort of like
regulation. I don't know about in, I don't know how old, what year it was when I was in seventh grade.
I don't know. Any Nanuet school teachers listening to this?
Maybe like 1996. What were the protocols? What were the regulations?
We want to know what animals we're dissecting today. I think something that was one of my favorite animal school experiences, we had chicks in second grade.
Oh.
Shout out to Mrs. Frisch. And we got to like watch them hatch, even though I still feel like we were, you know, they should be free in a farm somewhere, but that was fun. We didn't have to do any dissecting. They were just very cute.
Did you also do butterflies? Did you have a cocoon situation in like a shoebox?
I think we did.
And then it turned into a butterfly. That was, then we set them free. That was the alternate experience.
Yes. Yes. Sign me up for cocoons and setting them free and not drugging these frogs.
Right out. I was just laughing because like when I first saw that, I was like, they're not really going to do this, right? Like this is not a real thing.
Yeah.
And then when he was like setting the free, I'm like, that, I mean, not that that's would have been my behavior, but I would have just like snapped.
You wouldn't have gone intoxicated and made out with your sixth grade crush and used a body to stand on it while whole frogs. Such a great scene, though. I know this is the what we didn't like section, but it's like there's a lot going on aside from if we could just for Michelle just cut to all the frogs being set free.
Yes,
I think that.
But this is also a great transition because this was the one thing that I want to know your opinion about whether or not you feel like this needs to be in the movie. Because I didn't love the whole Elliot and E.T. having this telepathy, shared feelings thing. Yeah. I felt like it was done kind of clunky. Like the rules around it were a little vague. So that distracted me from it. And I kept coming around to like, did this add anything to it? I felt like he felt connected to him without them having this like supernatural connection.
Yeah, I was thinking we want to poke holes. Like I didn't fully understand and they didn't really give us an explanation. I don't think that they fully committed to it because it was very at certain points that he was feeling his feelings and understood that we're not going to understand how it's happening because it's a creature from another universe and we don't understand why he's the one to have a connection with him. My thought was like they kept saying that he chose Elliot. So it was kind of like they almost, if we're talking about Twilight, like imprinting on someone and kind of them having, but it felt very clunky. It felt like some scenes he was feeling the same things and other scenes he wasn't. So I almost wish they kind of would have done like all or nothing. I will say the scene where E.T. is home and drinking alcohol and all these things, I was like, wow, I've never connected with another character in a movie so much. Like all I want to do is just be home in a robe eating potato salad.
And drinking beer.
Maybe not the beer, but like a glass of wine. But I was like, I connect with E.T. right now. I feel him.
One other thing, this is much more of like a preference thing. And I think that this was true of so many 80s movies. Like, why was everything so like dark and musty
Yeah.
inside?
Yeah, I think you are always going to gravitate towards light and beautiful settings and things, but I think that it was necessary to coincide with the plot of making it very kind of like dark and ominous and creepy, but having like streaks of light come
Okay,
through at certain points. Also, logistically, he was sensitive to light, so
that's
that's why
true.
they had to keep the
Okay.
house. But it's a very like dark movie, and then you kind of go outside and it's like hot desert California. So
Yeah.
I think there's a lot of like contrast between those two settings. But
I don't know. I think that there's this like general like patina of brownness in a lot of 80s movies and TV shows. And I guess I want more like clarification as to like were all of those intentional choices or was that just like the look of the era? But
I think it was the
I think you're
look.
right.
Yeah.
I think in this instance what there was a lot of intention behind it, but because so many other movies have that look, it was like getting muddled for me.
Yeah. I know what you're saying. So favorite scene, most enjoyable scene. I'm always looking for the comedic aspects. I love when Gertie dresses ET up in the girly costume. I just find so much joy in that. And that's when they deliver the iconic line, ET phone home, which is so adorable. I just love his little voice, which I read yesterday they found an old woman who was the voice of ET, and she
Like a
smoked
heavy
a lot of
smoker.
cigarettes.
Yeah.
She actually did. She smoked like 2 packs a day, which I just made it so much better. But that scene gives me so much joy. I'm gonna keep using the same words of experimental, but innocence is so big for me in this movie. Gertie has to be one of my favorite aspects of it, and any scene that she's in with him just makes my heart sing. And I think that it was just so like on brand for her character to do something like that. Some other lines that I love are some other like comedic ones where Mike is saying like, "Oh, they're never going to give me a license." And I mentioned earlier, but like when Elliot says, "I don't know streets." And then on more of like a sentimental note, I really, really love when Elliot says, "I'll believe in you my whole life every day." I was like losing it. It was so beautiful.
That's so cute. Can I also just say, like, the first time I heard Elliot's voice, I almost like started crying because I was like, it's so high. It's like higher than I was expecting for someone that
No,
age.
I was thinking so much because Alex, and I feel like
Yeah.
you think he's a little bit younger than Elliot's supposed to be, but I feel like he has like that
He has that
innocence and
spirit. Yeah.
sweetness. Like I think he would definitely take ET in and take care of him. But yeah, I just love that line. It pulls at my heartstrings. And again, I think that there's a lot of iconic lines that people say all the time in our cultural phenomenon that I don't like. We talk about this in our Valentine's Day season, but the line "Here's to looking at you, kid," like I
Like enough
don't
already.
like that. I don't
Yeah.
like that line, but I think ET phone home is such a cute, and it's just like the thought of wanting to go home, like back to the people you love, and
That's for the
the
adults. Like, I mean, when
yeah,
you think about it, you're like, yeah, that's really just like what everyone wants.
yes.
Yeah.
So bravo. So that line has stuck.
Great picks. And even better that you didn't steal any of my answers.
We're really getting good at this.
We are. My favorite scene, also a Gertie scene. I feel like the lead up to this is important as to why I think that this works really well. Elliot's the first one who has an interaction with ET. He finds him. The second person that he kind of like lets in on this is Michael. And they know that the mom's going to be a problem, and they definitely know that Gertie's going to be a problem. So my favorite scene is when Gertie first sees ET And her reaction, which is just screaming, is exactly the reaction that a kid should have. I think when it happened, like not only was it funny, but it was like, yes, finally, exactly. Like this is an appropriate response to the situation. And it almost felt like, it's like the voice of the audience.
Yeah, I think that we didn't talk about this in our love section, but we have to give a shout out to Drew
Oh,
Barrymore.
yes.
She is, I love her. I feel like with so much that you read about her, of how difficult of a childhood she had. And if there's any good that came of it, is that we are so blessed to have her in this movie because she's so great. But
could not be better cast. I mean, no other person could have played that
just
part.
want to like squeeze her. She's so adorable in this. And Elliot is, I mean, very well cast movie.
I've gotten into like the bad habit of doing this where I watch the movie too far in advance and then write down these quotes, but don't. Now I can't remember exactly when they happened. Elliot says, I have to think that this may have been somewhere at the beginning when maybe Elliot was like with the friends and they were kind of like being mean to him. And he says, it was nothing like that penis breath.
Yes.
It's such a just like brother to brother.
Yeah, he says it to his
insult.
brother when they were sitting at the very dark dinner, dark, dimly lit dinner scene with the four of them.
Okay, it was with when the mom was there. Okay.
Yeah, great line.
Also, this line is from Gertie. She's telling on Michael for something, and she says, look what Michael did. This and this.
That sounds like a very, who do we think of the four of us? I would say Lisa.
Yes.
A very Lisa line.
And the last one, I guess I pulled a line from each sibling. This one is from Michael. He says, I hope we don't end up on Mars or something.
Yes.
Not a profoundly written script, but definitely some good lines and obviously some iconic lines that have stood the test of time.
Yes. I also just love which we can't really make sense of, that he just learns to speak, but I just love when he starts repeating everything. It's so great.
It's kind of, I think, in a way, like a little bit of a fantasy. I think a lot of people, I have to imagine, see their pets in ET, and we all talk to our pets, and I think some of us at some points wish that our pets could talk back. So it's kind of like, imagining what that might be like.
What do you think Rory would say to you right now?
Right now?
I was going to say, I feel like he's like, Mom, I'm going to go jump on this table and then I'm going to come back. Like, he's very like...
Yeah, he's jaunty. Yeah.
He reminds me of like a classic image of one of those black cats with like the arched back way, where he's always like mischievous and jumping around, but...
that's a good assessment.
Yeah. He's like I don't know. He's like a little bouncy bean.
Yes. What would Baxi, our family dog, say?
Leave me alone and go get me a bone.
Precisely.
And go fetch one of my 17 beds, particularly the one that's in the upstairs bedroom of Cape Cod, and drive it 4 hours to me in New Jersey. It has some nice plush pillows in it. That's what he would say. I always picture him as like a snooty British man.
Yeah, he definitely is.
Mother, I got into your muffin stash and I threw up all over your bed.
A little bit of like Stewie in there.
Yeah. Now take me on a walk. That's what he would say.
So is this our writing segment of the podcast?
Add it into the jar.
The adventures of Baxter the dog.
Rory and
Baxter. Yeah.
Yes. Features of Dagny, Tui, LaBertha, and Chunk.
LaBertha, who you just learned about last week.
I know.
Barely knew she was a thing.
I knew she was a thing. I didn't know that she died so young.
Her tragic death.
Tragic death. I kind of like this idea. What would that be? 5 cats and a dog?
Yeah.
Outnumbered.
Oh, wait. We forgot if we're including my kitties, we have to include our, like, the animal cousins.
Yeah. That's true. We can throw Carmine and Emma and Lily and Nala and anyone else who wants to join. They have a lot of
I think
cats in their
that's
family.
everyone. Yeah.
I thought you were referring to Jimmy's
No,
sisters as well that have
no. I
also
mean
have a lot
that.
of
I mean
dogs.
that's going to be they're in the extended universe.
So now we're just making a movie about pets taking over the world.
Yes.
So Pets 1 and Pets 2.
Yes.
That already exists. I'm very hungry while recording this podcast right now, so I think this is going to be a difficult food section for me. But I'll start with what this movie made me want to eat, which isn't much. I haven't really been having like a candy sweet tooth, so actually this is false. This has happened to me a lot on this podcast where I accidentally have some sort of connection to the movie that we're happen to be reviewing. So, and I think at the time of this purchase, I didn't know that we were going to be filming ET, but I was in Whole Foods the other day to pick up an item. And when they have that checkout section where they just throw some other items, like, you know, grab bag items, they had like Whole Foods 365 peanut butter cups, so not Reese's branded.
I
And
saw
they were
you
like
post these the other day. I've
they
been
were like
thinking about them since.
$5, and they don't give you enough. It's like a chip bag where it's half empty, but they were really good, and I ate them in 2 days. But I didn't even do it on purpose, and I don't remember the last time I bought myself a bag of candy. So I think that ET in Mars or whatever universe planet he's on, he was like, Laura, buy these for me. But I sadly didn't eat them while watching this. Every time I watch these movies where they have soda, which I don't drink, but anytime someone says like a Coca-Cola, I'm like, I could go for ice cold Coca-Cola. Also, okay, wait, I found a thread with Memorial Day. I brought up potato salad. There was potato salad featured. It didn't look appetizing.
Mine
I do love potato salad. I understood why he threw it out. It probably was sitting in there for a while.
My note about the potato salad just says gross potato salad.
Yeah, it wasn't good potato salad. It was like from their version of whatever their grocery store was back in the day, pre-packaged. I would imagine it to be a little crumbly and not creamy. But this weekend is, I keep saying to everyone, it's just, this weekend's just making me want a hot dog and potato salad and pasta salad. But yeah, I wasn't like hungry while watching this movie. I was eating multiple things while watching it. So maybe that's why.
I'm going to say something.
You know, Michelle's a hot take right now. I'm excited.
Was the 80s just like the grossest, unappealing decade for food?
Yes.
I'm actually like this movie, and I feel like I said that I don't know if it was last week or maybe it was the Jurassic Park, which is technically 90s, but like it made me not want to eat. Everything looked disgusting.
Even the pizza didn't look great.
The pizza didn't look good. I was
California doesn't have good pizza. That's why.
I was trying very hard to take note of everything that was in the fridge when E.T. opened it. There was Yoplait, cheese, strawberries, V8, the gross potato salad, and beer. But like it was like a light beer. Mary should have been drinking something more appealing.
That V8 was a good idea.
I'm so like, I don't know, like I feel bad for that era. And it's interesting that you brought up that you just bought peanut butter cups from Whole Foods, because like the concept of a Whole Foods type store where we're getting like ethically sourced and organic foods and gourmet creations, just they didn't exist in 1982.
No. That they were not eating good at dinner. I don't even remember what they had on their plates, but I know it wasn't good.
There was just like a lot of microwaving, a lot of frozen, crappy delivery,
a lot of TV dinners,
a lot of like processed it was like a big year for all, like a big decade for all of those things. Because I think all of those things kind of started to be developed like in the 50s and 60s. But I think by the time the 80s came around, it was like, that's all there
And
was.
I just learned that recently. I know this isn't a ethical food podcast because I know we eat a lot of bad things, but I just learned that recently that the reason we have so much processed food today and so much during this time period is because they like over prepared during wartime in the 50s and 60s. They were like, we need all this stuff just in case like we get blown up and everything needs to be able to be packaged and we can eat it forever. And they just never changed. So that's why now our generation's like, let's eat everything that's good for us, which is great. But yeah, I agree. There weren't that many things that this movie was making me want to eat as I was eating my very expensive Greek yogurt bowl and farmer's market peaches and apricots. Had like a fancy parfait bowl and I was eating like a sourdough sandwich with like all these fancy things on it. So
We have to do a
maybe that's
better
where
job, whatever our theme is for season 5. It needs to be more, we need to get back to our roots. It needs to be a
I
little
know.
bit more appealing food focused because even like looking forward to the 2 movies that we have left, I don't think it's going to get any better in this
No
season.
champagne in this movie either.
And no champagne. I made that declaration, my champagne theory, that there's champagne in every movie, and immediately the next 2 have no mention.
I like to think that when E.T. got home, they had champagne.
They probably had it in the spaceship.
He was familiar with alcohol.
That's true. He went right for it.
He went right for it. So I think that they popped some bottles. And they had like one of the, when like you see people have birthday parties and they have like the light up stick in the
Yeah,
champagne
yeah.
bottle at clubs. I think that's what they had for E.T. when he got home. Okay. This is gonna be an interesting dinner party.
Yeah, I feel like we've been just butchering these, but
Absolutely
let's
butchering
let's make
them.
the best of it with what we have to work with.
Okay. I'm almost inclined to just throw a pizza party and call it a day. What if we were gonna do like E.T.'s birthday party and
I love
the
this.
3 kids are the only ones that are there. Like
Okay.
no one else is invited.
Okay.
This is the core 4. It's gonna be at their house. They're gonna order pizza, but what else are we putting on the table for him?
Well, how about this? This is a fantasy situation. No, no budget to worry about. So each of the kids get their own, Kevin McAllister style, their own individual pizza where they get to pick what's on it. So what's everyone picking as their toppings, or if any?
I feel like Gertie's secretly adventurous, maybe because she's the
Yep.
youngest. I think she's into some anchovies. And let's pretend that this is not in the 80s and she's like, you know what? I'm going to get a grandma style pizza
Okay.
with some anchovies on it.
I like
What do you
this.
think?
E.T. can bend time and space. Grandma style
Yes.
with anchovies for Gertie. I like it.
What do you think Michael's doing? I hope you're going to say the same thing I was thinking.
Oh, I think Michael's getting whatever the version of the like supreme meat situation, the one that has all the meats that
Meat
you could
lovers
meat
pie.
lovers. Yes. Is that what you were thinking?
That's what I was thinking. Either that or just like a plain cheese. Like,
Yeah.
see, I kind of feel like Elliot is more of a plain cheese
Yeah, I was going to go
guy,
with plain cheese for Elliot.
but he like, I feel like he would be particular that he's like, I don't like a lot of sauce. I want a very like, maybe even just like a white pie.
Or something that's like more like bread, just like
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. Like he's like, I'm not a big, I feel like he doesn't like tomatoes.
What if he gets instead of a pizza, like I was going to say breadsticks, but then the dipping sauce is usually like a marinara
Yeah.
based.
But I feel like he would be weird and want like ranch or something.
So breadsticks with ranch dipping sauce. Yeah, that feels right.
Yeah. Yeah, that feels right. Oh, we haven't done this movie yet, but I was just thinking of this because of Reese's Pieces and candy and pizza. We have to do Princess Diaries at some point because I don't think you've seen this movie, but there is a scene where they get someone, I won't give it away for you since you haven't seen it, but there's a pizza that's delivered and there's words written on the pizza in Skittles. So I'm just picturing Elliot getting like a cheese pizza with no sauce, but putting like Reese's Pieces on it. Almost like like he definitely wasn't smoking weed, but maybe he grew
could
up
have been.
to be like, I feel like he could have been a stoner, like in the future. If he had met E.T. in his teen years, I think that's what would be his pizza order. He's like, I'm stoned and I just want like a cheesy pizza and I'm going to put some Reese's Pieces on it. And I'm also going to have like ranch dipping sauce.
All of that checks out. And I would be thrilled to review Princess Diaries. I thought that I had seen it, but you're describing that and I have like no recollection. So it would be very much coming in fresh.
I can't wait for it. It's going to be a great one. We might have to move that. We don't have a next season planned, so maybe we do
a royal season.
Royal season, yeah.
Or Julie Andrews season.
It's a lot to work with.
So many options.
Throw it in the jar. Throw it in the idea jar.
Okay.
Wow, now I really want a pizza. What do we think ET? What are we going to order ET?
I feel like ET would just request like any topping that was available, put it on. All toppings. Pineapple.
I'm like a lot of peppers and like mushrooms. Why do I feel like he is a vegetarian?
I think he is. Okay, so scrap any meat options, but all vegetable options.
If the mom came home and she saw this party unfolding, which pizza would she gravitate most towards?
Probably Michael's. I think she's probably secretly like a carnivore. You know, she's got beer in the fridge. Like I think that she's
having a good time.
Yeah.
Her ex-husband's in Mexico without her. Yeah. And he doesn't even like Mexico. So she's like, you know what, I'm indulging in the meat lover's pie. Which of these are you gravitating most towards?
Probably the ET pizza.
Yeah.
I mean, I could go for like most toppings. I'm not averse to anchovies, but it wouldn't be my choice to put it on a pizza unless it was. You could talk me into it, Laura, because I know that I trust your creations. If it was paired in the right way, I would trust that it would taste good. But I think pizza has plenty of salt. It kind of doesn't need that, like the extra kick.
Yeah, that's why you go easy on the salt. You don't put any salt on or much in the sauce, and you rely on anchovies as a natural salter. So I put anchovies on like everything.
Okay, so you would have the Gertie pizza?
Oh yeah.
Okay.
I feel like I didn't consciously do that, but I'm like youngest child sibling, most fun, most adorable, and also has good pizza choices.
Doesn't look like ET. Yes.
Doesn't look like ET. I have trendy cowgirl outfits and wear my hair in pigtails. So that's that.
Okay. Are they getting dessert or is this a pizza only party?
I'm going to go one or two routes, which are very different and kind of like the only two most popular flavor options. If we're going to go Tropiano style, we would make him a funfetti cake, which I feel like he would be jazzed about, like because the double layer.
I don't think maybe funfetti existed. I'm looking this up. I'm going to fact check this on the spot. What year did funfetti come out?
I'm going to guess 1998. But it wasn't like popular, like when it was first produced.
Close, but I mean, the numbers were close, but not in the right order. 1989, the Pillsbury Company introduced Funfetti Cake, a portmanteau of fun and confetti, which achieved great popularity.
Okay.
Did I say that word right? Portmanteau?
I have no idea what that is.
Feels like a word that shouldn't be in the copy for like boxed cake mix.
I honestly thought you said poor man's toe. I was like, I'm going with it. Okay, I get it. But I'm picturing either a funfetti cake, like double layer, or just like a Bruce bug trotta cake.
Oh, okay. Not where I thought you were going to go.
Big, just like a double chocolate cake. I don't know ET well enough. I do know he does like Reese's, or he gravitates, so maybe he's more of like a double chocolate guy. What about you? What were you thinking? Are we just going to give them all their own cakes at this point?
I was thinking one cake, but we can continue with the individual theme. I was thinking at like a Carvel ice cream cake.
I love a Carvel ice cream cake. Fudgy the Whale, or
like
a vanilla? Vanilla chocolate with the crunchies. They all have the crunchies.
They all have the crunchies. Maybe like a Fudgy the Whale, but maybe we could get it customized to get some peanut butter in there, like a layer of peanut butter, like the crunchies, and then a layer of peanut butter.
A Reese's ice cream cake. That could be fun.
I think that's our answer.
That's it. And we'll also
like, I would love that right now.
Yes, I want that right now. Well, your 40th birthday is in a couple weeks, so we might have to make you a Reese's cake. It might melt, but I'll try and send you one.
And here's a Reese's cake and some anchovies.
I call Jimmy. I'm like, Jimmy, go and find a Reese's cake. He's like, that does not exist. I'm like, you're gonna find it or make it.
But no, if I'm picking, I think I want the funfetti. I want the portmanteau of
we do want a
confetti and fun.
Michelle,
we've got two left of our SOS season.
The summer is getting hotter. We are so excited. What are we recording next week? And please share some extra intel of why this is a special episode.
Who is it, and do we have enough time?
Neither.
Next week, we're taking it back to the original summer blockbuster, the movie that started it all, Steven Spielberg's epic Jaws. And we will be joined by a special guest, also named Steven. Should we share who it is, or should we let it be a surprise? I mean, I feel like that was kind of
I think we should keep it open. Let's keep them guessing.
That's true, because you know what? We're having a very prominent Steven join us for the next episode, but we have several other Stevens who may join us for other episodes in the future. So we'll leave a little bit of ambiguity here.
Gosh, so many Steves in our life. It's very open-ended right now. I mean, our audience base is going nuts. So make sure you guys come listen and bring a rafter.
Yes. A rafter or a raft?
I guess. I think that the two of us need to go back to fourth grade English. Listen, I was not fed yet today, so
okay, go eat some anchovies.
My brain is a little foggy. I'm gonna go eat anchovies out of a jar.